What's up, everyone, and welcome to The Perspective, weekly call-in show where you call in with your supernatural claims, belief in aliens, or conspiracy theories, and we talk to you about them. I'm your host, Ethan, and alongside me is one of my personal favorites, Dave Warnock. Dave, how are you?
Hey, Ethan, you're one of my personal favorites, too. I just love you, dude.
Thanks, man. The feeling's mutual. Like, I love how, like, patient and calm you are with people and just your overall outlook on life, man.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm not always that way. I have my moments. Bevan will tell you that.
Don't we all? I know, like, for me, anytime, like, I am, like, a hair less than friendly, people are like, you're supposed to be friendly. And I'm like, I am. It doesn't mean I don't, like, I can't be
human. and we're in the middle of a pandemic. I think everybody gets a little grace for that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because isolation can be a killer. I mean, I'm one of the lucky ones because I'm with my my nephew and my uncle. Sorry, my nephew and my brother. So fortunately, like, the isolation wasn't as bad for me. But there are plenty of people who are alone right now.
Completely alone, right? I know. I've thought about that, and I'm with my partner Bevan, and we have each other. But man, if you're completely alone, it can. I mean, you could go a little crazy on that, man.
Yes. Anyways, Dave, so we actually already have some callers lined up. So how do you feel about just jumping into calls?
Let's jump in.
Sweet. All right. Coming up first, we have Ashley. Ashley, you are on with Dave and Ethan. How are you doing?
Hey, Ethan, it's Amy and Ashley. Sorry that didn't come through on the little message there. How are you?
Good. How about yourself?
Awesome. It's so good to finally talk to you.
Hey, you too. Thanks for taking the time to call in today. One of these days, I'm going to get some phone screeners and as opposed to that automated screener, but I haven't quite gotten there yet.
No problem.
So for those that don't know, Dave and also myself are both advocates for death with dignity, also known as assisted suicide. And from my understanding, Amy and Ashley, you're opposed to it. Is that correct?
Correct.
And may I ask why that is?
Okay, so I'm going to talk first. This is Amy. I believe that every life has value and that it's up to our Creator to decide when that life ends, and it's not up to us. And then I also am a firm believer in God's miracle working power and his ability and his desire to heal. And so I would always hold out the hope that there would be a miracle and that person would be healed.
So for those that are sorry, Dave, I'll let you tell your own story and why you are an advocate for this.
Yeah, I don't know. Ashley, am I talking to Ashley or Amy?
Well, we're both listening. This is Amy. I spoke first. And
hi, I'm Ashley. Nice to meet you all.
You too.
Hey, good to meet you. Do you guys know my story at all before I do too much of it?
We actually do. We wanted to know who we would be talking to. So we listened to a podcast that you had done. I'm not sure exactly which one it was, but we have heard your story. Yes.
Okay.
Some of your story.
Well, as you know, then I used to be an evangelical Christian, and many of those years was a pastor. So I'm very familiar with the Bible and what it says about life and death and everything. I've read the Bible for years. And also been diagnosed with ALS, which is a terminal illness with no cure and no treatment currently. So it's truly a death sentence. And are you familiar with ALS and as a disease and what it does to you?
Not in particular, no.
No, yeah, I'm not either. And I actually didn't even know that there's no cure or anything like that.
Yes, it's a terminal disease. Everyone who gets ALS dies, 100%. There's never been someone who's been healed of it or got over it and went on to live a normal, natural life. So it's a motor neuron disease, a muscular degenerative disease where my muscles are gradually are stopping working. They're going to quit working. So far I've lost strength in my hands and arms. It hasn't traversed to other parts of my body, but life gets increasingly difficult with ALS. I know a lot of people. I've had it for a couple of years, and I've gotten to know a lot of people in the ALS community who I've gotten to know quite well, and most of them are doing a lot worse than me. I'm what they call a slow progressor. One of the slowest that I've known of. Most of them have progressed much faster than that. In fact, I've known of people who've been diagnosed and dead within 6 months. It gradually and sometimes very quickly, you lose control of everything in your body. Your ability to talk, walk, dress yourself, feed yourself, bathe yourself, wipe yourself, anything. And so you eventually need help doing every single thing in your life. And it's a horrible disease that completely ruins any kind of self-sufficiency or ability to be independent. That said, it's one of the worst ways to die. You eventually, the muscles in your diaphragm quit working and you're not able to breathe, and you die that way. So to say that someone needs to let that play out and wait until God decides you've had enough, and he says, okay, that's enough suffering, you can die now. Those of us with ALS find that to be incredibly cruel and inhumane, if you will. And so that's why I'm very much in favor of those of us in this kind of a situation having the freedom and the ability to decide that, no, I've had enough. I've had enough suffering. I'm tired of everything in my life having to be done for me. I'm tired of not being able to even turn myself in bed. And so I'm going to pull the plug. And I have a hard time understanding why there's anything wrong with that. So I would be curious to get your take, Amy and Ashley, on why. I know you say that you say that God should be the one to decide when our life is over. Why do you say that?
Well, this is Ashley now. I first just want to say, Dave, I really am so sorry about your diagnosis. I didn't know anything about it. Like Amy said, we listened to one of your podcasts, and I don't know which one it was, and did hear some of your story, and just really feel sorry for a lot of the things that you've even gone through. So I just want to say that. But I know that it comes down for all of us to our core beliefs about life and God, and, who God is to us. And so I've heard, some of your story, with that too. And I think that's just really where it kind of goes in two different directions. Because, of course, we do believe in God and really believe that anything could happen, I guess. And to really, I guess, like, kind of not give that a chance. And then, of course, for us to not give God a chance, who we believe in, and who, we believe that God, and I know what we believe, but it's not hard for me, at least, and I know Amy, to believe that God heals, because there's a lot of things that come along with believing in Jesus, right? So, that is why, God, the God that we know, the God that I know is for life, and he wants you better. So that's kind of like in our world where we're coming from, I guess. And I'm really thankful to just be here. I just want to say that I listened to your show the other day for the very first time, and I just really appreciate the freedom on here to talk about it. Dave, there's so many things that I heard you say in your podcast that I agree with. I feel like you have found things in this life that so many people haven't. And yeah, so I see a lot of courage in you and strength, and you really just see for me, like a fighter. And so I guess, so in like a very like personal way or whatever, I think that, in some ways, I'm trying to just be real nice about this without nobody getting offended. I'm not offended.
No, I'm not offended
I
either.
believe,
I appreciate you saying that. I'm not offended at all. And
okay.
just so you know, this is not the first time I've encountered this argument that for someone to choose to end their life, for someone like me, if I get to the point where I choose to end my life on my terms, in my timing, I've been told that I'm playing God. Is that kind of how you feel about that?
I guess I just feel like it's not natural at all. You know, we also don't get to choose when we come into this world. And again, it just really goes back to a lot of theology and our core beliefs in general. So like, I believe in a God who, you know, put us here. And I believe a lot of things because I don't necessarily always believe it's God who takes us out. You know, you have the whole role of the enemy in what we believe. And, you know, so that's kind of the angle that I come in and, you know, that's why I want healing. And for me, I also had heard you say like how so many Christians are like scared of death. And I definitely, I mean, I have a whole story within myself, but I definitely was, you know, I was raised in church and a lot of religion. And I just think there's a lot of things that happen in the name of Jesus that aren't God, you know, and aren't Jesus. And I just think that, you know, I've learned in my own life and relationship with God, like how good he is and what he wants. Like he wants goodness for our life and he wants healing. And I've also been there where I have been scared to death of death. And I'm really to a place now where I don't feel like I am at all. And the only reason that, I mean, the big reason that I want healing is because, you know, there is an afterlife for us, we believe, but it's all for now too. It's all for right now and to get you better and to get you to see another sunset and all the things that you do like to do. So that's just in a nutshell, kind of where I'm coming from with it.
Well, go ahead, Ethan.
Let me ask you this: Are knowing that there's no like cure for ALS, so there unfortunately at this point in time there is no getting better. There's no history of remission, cure, or anything like that. Knowing that the rest of Dave's life could very well be painful and unpleasant, are you still opposed to that?
Yeah.
Well, I would, it's Amy now. I would prefer, you know, to still believe that God will heal. I personally, you know, coming from, like she said, what we believe, would never look at a situation and say that it's too hopeless for the Lord to work. Like, there's no cure, yes. And it does sound like a horrible, horrible disease. And again, with Ashley, like, I'm so sorry that you're going through this. But I do believe that God is a healer, and I do believe that he's a miracle worker. And I've seen him heal people with my own eyes. And I would always hold out of a hope of healing and rather pray for a person to be healed versus say, okay, you know, we're just going to throw our hands up and just end it, you know. But obviously, I'm not trying to push my beliefs on you. That's just like where I'm coming from.
Well,
yeah, if you don't mind, I just sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay, I was just going to say along with that, you know, there's been other things that before there were cures, you know what I'm saying? So that's not for me either like a big, like, this is the way it is and always going to be. And you know what I'm saying? Like, we believe in something so much bigger, I guess. And there hasn't been, you know, in the past, there weren't cures for cancer and there weren't cures for, you know, certain things. And ultimately, we believe anyway that all that comes from God, you know?
Well, but it didn't. It came from science. Cancer medicine, you know, here's the thing about diseases and God throughout history, human history. There have been diseases since humans have been around. And only in the last 100 years, only in the last 50 years, have there been medicines and what you would call cures. God has been around, supposedly, all those years, but there were no cures until science caught up with the human condition. So the cures and the remedies and the treatments didn't come from God, they came from science, because God's been here all along. So we're basically saying to people who had cancer 100 years ago, sucks to be you, man. You should have waited 50 or 60 years to get that cancer when there was a cure. Because why didn't God bring it all those years ago if he was the one that was doing it?
Well, I think that first of all, I think it's hard to say what God in all ways, in all lives and everything actually did do, because it's so hard, because I know like what angle you're coming from, and then ours is a total opposite. But God is, I believe, like in science, and I know what you're saying. You're saying like, okay, so why didn't this happen faster, right?
Exactly. What about all those people like infertility? One of my daughters was infertile. Well, actually, her husband, they couldn't have babies. And so 200 years ago, 500 years ago, even Bible days, she was a barren woman. And it's just too bad. But now science has found ways for couples to do in vitro fertilization and other things, where now she's got three daughters. But 500 years ago, just too bad. You're a barren woman.
That actually, I'm curious, Amy and Ashley, are you opposed to in vitro fertilization? And the reason I ask is because, like, what if God's plan for you is not to have kids?
Well, I don't think God's plan for anybody is not to have kids, because the Bible tells us to be fruitful and multiply. And like Ashley said, God is a God of life and love and light. And, we believe that sickness and disease and infertility and all of those things, that they come from the devil. And, I think that as far as cures and things go, I think that the way that Jesus followers are supposed to walk, according to the Bible and according to the way that the early church was, is not how our church looks today. Jesus came and he brought good news, and he brought the kingdom, and he healed people, and he cast out demons, and he brought good, and he healed people of all of their diseases. And if you look at how the early church, in Acts, I'm not sure how familiar you are with the Bible, Ethan. Obviously, I know that you know this, Dave, but how they walked. And I don't believe that ever should have stopped. I think that God's people who carry his Holy Spirit are supposed to be going through the earth and being his light, and that everyone we come in contact with should be prayed for, should be healed, and should be delivered from disease and devils and all sorts of things. And I think that that's the model that we have in the Bible, and somehow that got lost over time, and the church has done a lot of things, I feel, that are inconsistent with how we're supposed to be living. And so I'd rather, to me, have a group of people who are truly following what the Bible says to do, and healing and bringing the kingdom as we're supposed to, than have a scientific cure. Because, I think that God made us to heal, and we just are not doing our job as Christians, to be honest.
So do you think that the devil gave me ALS?
I do, yeah.
You do?
I do, yeah. I think that sickness and disease and illness comes from the devil. Yes, I do.
So let me ask you this. Let me ask you something. I'm involved on several groups online with ALS. They call them PALs, people with ALS, and caretakers. And there's a lot of them. In fact, if I had to put an estimate on this group of hundreds of people online that I'm connected with, and some that I've met in real life. Probably 90% of them are believers. They're praying for the healing that you talk about. They're talking about prayers and blessings and all the Christian vernacular of which I'm very familiar. And also, you do understand that I used to believe everything that you're talking about. But all of these people who have ALS are praying for healing. They're Christians. In fact, my partner's nephew, their whole Facebook page is Jesus Heals so-and-so, his name. And they're praying for healing. They're all praying for healing. And yet, no one, not one, nada, zero, gets healed. Where is the power of God in that? Where you would think a certain percentage would. You would think some of them have enough faith. You would think some of them don't have sin in their lives. Not everybody is faithless and sinful. Surely God can come through for 10% of them, 20% of them, but not one. They're all getting worse every single day. Why is that?
Well, okay, this is Ashley again. So again, this goes back to like theology, right? It goes back to what we really believe our core beliefs.
That's insulting. Let's talk about what's happening here and now. I know the theology. I know what the Bible says. Why do you think God's not healing any of us? Not any single one.
I think that there's a level of spiritual warfare that needs to be achieved, and I think that the enemy fights really hard. And
Satan is stronger than God.
I don't know the details of everything. No, I'm not saying that they don't have enough faith or that they're have sin in their lives. That's not what I'm saying.
What you're saying, it sounds like, is that God is not able to overcome Satan in these conditions, in these situations, in every one of these situations, because of spiritual warfare. Which again, I'm familiar with the whole idea of demons and angels and darkness and light and the spiritual battle going on in the heavenlies and all of those things. But you would think that God would break through for some of these people who are praying fervently for their dads, their spouses, their kids to be better and not be destroyed by this terrible disease.
Let me ask you this, Amy and Ashley. If your child was suffering and they were begging you for help, would you help them, or would you just ignore them and let whatever happens happen?
I mean, of course we would help them.
So I would think that, I hope you agree with this, that in many ways that would make you more moral than God, because you're actually making the choice at that point to help someone who's suffering, where if God is real, he has the power, and he's actively ignoring or unwilling to help and just allowing Dave and other people with ALS to just suffer till they die.
I mean, no, so I don't really know what Dave had said when I was talking before. I think something about I was insulting him, but I was trying to just explain like what I believe in. And basically, I believe that, you know, in the beginning, you know, you have the garden and Jesus comes, you know, there's a curse and all that. And Jesus comes and we're going back to that. We're going back to the garden. Okay. So I believe in my theology. That's what I was saying. I believe that, you know, the bride of Christ is getting ready. We're growing the kingdom of God. And, you know, with that, I feel like there's people, like Amy was saying, there's people that aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing. And I'm not talking about the people with ALS. I'm not talking about anybody in particular. I'm just saying the church as a whole the ones who are claiming Jesus, the ones that, you know, I would think that you guys in a lot of ways have seen too, and a lot of the even inconsistencies, incongruencies, whatever, in our lives, and I have been there. But like I said, I've grown a lot and learned a lot more. And I listened to the show the other day that Amy was on, and just, you know, for me, I just feel like I have had a lot of answers to the questions that I've had, and I've just had a different experience, you know. And I have stopped, just like you did, Dave, in the middle of well, I know it was different. I'm not trying to say it was the same. I guess I resonated with a lot of the things you said. I had heard you say in a podcast, but I had stopped myself after being raised in church and really examined my faith, and basically said, you know, God, if you're real, like you're going to have to show me. I'm done playing church. I'm done with this. And that was kind of the conversation that I had. And, I just think the only difference that I know of, without, you know, really knowing you all and you, Dave, is when I did that, I personally, I didn't really take a step back and keep taking steps. And I know it was like a progressive thing for you. Well, that's what I had heard you say. I felt like
let me just jump in for a second. So real quick, I get that you're both of you are personally opposed to assisted suicide, but let's say right now you had the ability to vote on assisted suicide. Would you vote and force your and God's will on people like myself and Dave, who both reject God's existence and don't agree with you? Or would you limit your beliefs and not make a vote that would restrict it from other people?
Would we limit our belief and restrict it from other people? I feel like, okay, what was the first part?
So, okay.
Would you vote on a bill that would allow me to end my life on my terms?
Or would you force
even though you wouldn't choose to do it yourself personally, would you allow me the freedom to do it because I'm an individual with my own thoughts and rights? Right, Ethan? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's exactly. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. So no, I would vote against it, and yeah, that's basically because, again, of what I believe. I believe that God wants life. Like, this whole thing is different. You know, I believe that God wants you healed. Like, so it's going very much against what I believe.
But then why doesn't
like? Yes, I know you have freedom, but I'm also. What is it?
Why doesn't he heal the ones that are asking him to?
Okay, so that's what I was trying to get to. So I feel like we are going back to the garden. That's what I believe. So like the church is supposed to be getting ready for all of this, basically for Jesus's return. And Jesus, or the bride is supposed to match Jesus. She's supposed to look like Jesus. And basically we don't. So I don't know if you're really tracking with what I'm saying, but
let me jump in, because I know that theology very well. You're basically saying, because the church can't get its shit together, I have to suffer.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, yes.
Well, then why don't you guys get your shit together? Because I'm tired of losing my strength. I'm kind of being funny, but let me speak to this whole garden thing, because that's the argument I've heard a lot, that because of the fall of man, because of original sin, we have evil, we have sickness, we have disease, we have death, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who made those rules? Who decided that's how it has to be? Who's the one that created everything?
Yeah, God.
Okay. Why did he set it up so that all of humanity down through the ages is going to have to suffer needlessly and die prematurely? Go to the children's hospital in Memphis. I've been there many times when I was a pastor in Arkansas with parents whose children were born with cancer, with brain damage, with things like that. Go there to that hospital and tell me why God set it up out of the gate, right from the beginning, so that sin would enter in, because he's supposed to be omnipotent, omnipresent, and omniscient. And he's the one that knew how everything was going to happen down through the history of man. And yet he chose to devise a system and to create a system wherein humans would suffer and die for years and years and years, because he needed there to be some kind of free will or some kind of original sin. And he wanted to play this game with Adam and Eve in the garden and put a talking snake there. God, if you will, think of life as a Monopoly game. God is Milton Bradley. He can make the game with any rules he wants. He can devise any system he wants, and yet he chose that. And here we are years later with people suffering needlessly, even children who are innocent, because God decided this is the only way he could do this human experiment. Does that make any sense to you at all?
I mean, I definitely think that there's questions and things that we'll never understand on this side of eternity, you know, as we believe. Yeah, I mean, there's questions that anybody who thinks about things are going to have, of course. And I just have to choose to believe that God is good, even if I don't always understand why he does the things that he does and why things are the way that they are. I still believe that he is good, and I've personally experienced his goodness and his faithfulness over and over again. And I have suffered, you know, lots of different things in my life, but I still believe that he is good. And again, I think there's going to always be things like we just don't understand, and I don't have the answers to all of the questions.
So,
but I still have faith that God is good.
This is where, like, for me, I do get actually a little frustrated. I'm going to try and word this as best as possible, because I never want to, like, insult anybody's beliefs, but a lot of what you're saying, and what I hear from a lot of Christians who share your view, they sound like abuse victims. And what I mean is they're justifying horrible behavior and just saying, well, I'm just going to accept. I don't know. He could be doing completely some of the most heinous, evil shit imaginable, but I just don't know. And I'm still going to have faith that he's good. How do you even know he's good?
Well, I think that just goes down to the personal relationship, you know, and your experience with the Lord on a day-to-day basis. And just like, I know personally in my own life, there's been so many just answered prayers and answered questions and just complete miraculous life change in my own life and my family members, and just so many things where even if you take away all of the, you know, theology and all of the things, like, I know that God is real because of my relationship with him. And I know that he is good because of my relationship with him. And I don't have all the answers to all of the other things. I believe that bad comes from the devil, and I believe that God is good. And that's really what I
appreciate what you're saying, and I understand it. I don't agree with it at all. And I would challenge you one day to work up enough courage to do like I said and go to a children's hospital somewhere and talk to the parents who are crying out night and day for their child to be healed, to be saved, and many parents who don't experience that, even with the best doctors and medicine on the face of the earth, and tell them and testify to them that God has answered your prayers and granted miracles in your life, and share that with them and see how that goes over. Because
I actually would. I obviously would never do that, but I would go
You're saying it out loud.
faith as a person who carries the Holy Spirit, and I would pray for them, and I would do whatever it takes to.
You're saying it out loud on this show that God has answered your prayers, but God is not answering their prayers for their innocent baby who was born with a brain tumor.
God never answered my prayers either, if I'm being completely honest. I mean, I prayed, so many times, and it did me virtually no good. We do actually got to wrap up here, but there is one thing I'd really like to, Amy and Ashley, for you to consider is I can totally understand why you wouldn't want to do it yourself. However, I guess, do you have a right to force your and God's will on other people? And that's why I would ask that, say there ever came a time to enact some type of legislation, that you would not stand in the way, only because what you're doing is when you make a vote like that, you're saying, I don't really care about your opinions. How you feel is not important to me. You're going to do what I say, and you're going to live the life I want you to live because my God told you. Do you think that's right?
I think it's really hard to think about, not for anybody standing up for what they believe in and voting for what they believe in. And
right. You should stand up for what you believe in, but do you have a right to force your will
on me,
other people, or on Dave specifically?
Yeah,
like,
let's talk
you have the right.
Let's take it out of the realm of theory and theology and talk about personal lives here, because this is my life you're talking about now.
I mean, I just feel like, with that, of course, I'm not going to sit there and like actually stop you. But if the right is the right to vote for what you believe in, and I guess that's what.
So, right. But, again, there's a difference between voting for what you believe in and voting to restrict the rights of other people. And that's where I think the distinction comes in. But we do have.
Before we go, the whole premise of opposing assisted suicide, based upon where you guys are coming from, Amy and Ashley, is that you believe that we should not play God. We should let God be the one who decides when we live and when we die, and all those kinds of things, if I'm getting that right. My question to you is, and maybe you don't have to answer it now, but maybe something to consider, is if either of you were diagnosed with cancer or some real serious disease, and maybe you have it, I don't know, would you choose to, if the doctor said, first of all, would you go to a doctor? Because if you really want to take this to the limit, as the Eagles said, sing it, Ethan, take it to the limit.
Take the limit.
If you really want to take this to the limit, you're not going to interfere with anything that God does in your life. So if you get a disease, you're just going to pray, and either God will heal you of that or he won't, and you'll get sick and die if he doesn't. And because there are a lot of extremists who feel that way. They don't go to doctors, they don't take medicine. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but let's say you do go to doctors, and that you would take medicine if you were to get sick. How is that different than me deciding that I've suffered enough and I'm ready to end it? How is that different? How is it okay for you to go to the doctor, to get surgery, to get chemo if you've got cancer, and to get better? Why is that okay, but yet what I would choose to do is not?
Well, I'm 100% invested in God as a healer, and so I would not go to the doctor, and I would not go to the hospital. That's just a personal conviction.
Okay.
Based on what I believe and based on the strength of my faith, I wouldn't go. No.
Sorry, I have to call bullshit. You're saying if you got cancer or something, you wouldn't go to the doctor?
No, and actually, aside from
so did you say no? You wouldn't go to the doctor?
No, I wouldn't go. And aside from the faith portion of this, I wouldn't go anyway because I don't believe in chemotherapy and I don't believe in medicines like that. I would prefer a natural treatment. So no, I would not.
What if one of your kids? What if one of your kids got cancer? Would you not take them to the doctor? Well, I guess you wouldn't even know if they had cancer because you wouldn't go get diagnosed.
So I guess that's a good question. Would you let your child suffer if they had cancer?
You know, that's obviously a hypothetical situation that I would really need to think about before I answered, and I'm just not going to answer that right now. But
come on, guys, you got to do better than this.
Yeah,
you need to do a show like this. Don't call into a show and then just back up when the question gets too hard. That's bullshit. I'm sorry. Now you pissed me off.
Would you save your child or would you let them suffer? That's a very that's a yes or no question.
You had a child at home that couldn't breathe and they were losing their breath. Would you call 911 or would you?
I will not. Okay, hold on. Okay, I would not take my child to a traditional doctor. No, I see holistic doctors. I do natural healing. Even aside from the faith portion of it, which obviously I would pray for my child to be healed, and I would have people pray for my child to be healed. I would not take my child to a traditional doctor. I would take them to a holistic doctor because that aligns with my beliefs. I don't believe really in Western medicine. I'm not saying that there's no place for it ever, but those are my personal beliefs. I don't believe in Western medicine. I believe, in holistically, I believe our bodies.
I'm before we sign off on this call, Ethan, can I ask Amy and Ashley, do you believe the world is flat or round?
I do not believe the world is flat, no.
It's a legitimate question based on what you just said. Sorry.
All right. Well, I want to thank you for calling in. I feel like we need to end this before.
Yeah.
Dave's
I got nothing to say. I got nothing to say.
A lot of what going on, Amy, Ashley, sounds like neglect and abuse.
I just hope you never really get sick. That's all I got to say.
I do too. I hope both you and if you have children.
And by the way, if you don't have kids, please don't.
Again, I agree with that. So thank you for calling in.
How is it neglect and abuse to see a holistic doctor? I'm confused.
What?
I had to, I cut it off. That was actually really frustrating.
Oh my God.
Dave, I'm sorry.
I didn't realize we were dealing with batshit crazy. Sorry.
I
thought we had a legitimate question and people that we could actually reason with. Holy shit.
That's what it seemed like in the beginning. I'm like, okay, they have some opposing views.
They should be
denied
to have children.
Right. And to deny chemo and other treatments and then purpose. All right. Let's get back to like I gotta give you props, Dave. Like I was like sitting here, like I'm actually sweating right now. I am so frustrated. I am sweating. I'm holding, like I'm trying to maintain the friendly composure right now because I am legitimately frustrated. All right.
Oh my God. I don't know. You really can't have reasonable conversations with people like that. I'm sorry. That's just they're just way out there. That's what I asked about the flat Earth. Maybe they're flat earthers. I mean, seriously, that was a serious question from me.
It was. It sounds like they're also anti-vax, or they're pretty much
they're out there.
Anti-all medication.
All right, kids, seriously.
So let's get to, we got a bunch of callers, so we'll try and power through some of these a little bit faster. So Richard, you have a supernatural claim. You're on with wow, I can't talk. That's how frustrated I am. Holy crap.
Ethan, take
Dave. Are you there, Richard?
Yeah, I'm here. If it's the right Richard.
Yeah, we can hear you. What do you got for us?
Okay, well, I told you a little bit about what I've seen and others with me have seen. I may have said something about the butterfly, the white butterfly that flew through our front windshield and out the back window. In another occasion with my present wife, we were driving down I-84 by the Columbia River, and this jet aircraft was flying very, very low, was not making any sound at all, the plane, and we could see the pilot. And the third thing that is a little weird is I was over at my friend's house. We were dabbing a little bit, and this MAX train, which is a commuter train in Portland, Oregon, it drove down his driveway, which is impossible because, it couldn't be a MAX train, but my friend saw it with me. So on 3 different occasions, these supernatural things happened. And I don't know what caused them. And there's other things too I could also talk about if you care to listen. I did what you said. 10 years ago, I had either a CAT scan or a MRI.
Okay.
And when they put me inside the MRI, head first, I went in and I saw on the ceiling, it looked like a road map, the old road maps, only there were no directions or cities or anything like that, just a whole bunch of lines.
Okay.
And anyway, now this is the part that, I can't confirm this part because I'm the only one seen it. I have seen a thing that looks like a large Earth-like planet with trees, buildings, lakes, oceans, forests. There's no people on it, and there's no animals. They asked, this will be verifiable in time.
Real quick,
I have
Richard.
So what's the claim here, Richard?
Yeah, that's what. Thank you. That's exactly what I was going to ask.
Kristen keeps saying, "What's his claim?" His claim. Yeah, what are you saying, Richard? What are you claiming that you saw or believe or think?
What do you mean?
When you say there's like something supernatural, okay, so for instance, some people will say, "Hey, I saw this angel come down from heaven." What specifically, are you saying is happening?
I'm saying specifically that what I said is supernatural.
So, what do you believe it is?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
So then, how do you know it's supernatural?
Well, supernatural is anything that is breaks the law of physics, isn't it?
Well, it breaks natural laws, therefore it's supernatural.
Yeah. Okay, and those events I just described to you are definitely breaking the law of physics.
You're just saying you've experienced some things. Now, you said you were dabbing a little bit. Does that mean you were like taking some fun little things and then saw these things, or what?
Well, no.
I didn't know what you meant.
I'm having difficulty.
Sorry,
dabbing a little bit. You said you and your friend were dabbing a little bit. What's that mean?
Dabbing, like when someone says dabbing, typically they're referring to like marijuana.
Dabbing means smoking marijuana.
Oh, okay.
You're saying you were smoking marijuana and then it had these supernatural experiences. I think we can put two and two together here. I don't know. I'm just
you can't
spitballing here.
Marijuana does impact or has psychological effects on you. Don't you think it's possible that could have been responsible for your altered perception?
Have you smoked marijuana?
Oh, dude, I smoke marijuana every day, man.
And do you see supernatural things every day?
No, but I would say I am more susceptible to seeing things out of the corner of my eye, or like my mind playing tricks on itself, than I am when I'm sober.
Let's go with that one, okay? I'll say that. Okay, maybe, but I doubt it very much.
But why? Like, so I guess my question would be, why not?
Now,
Like, why not go, hey, I'm going to look into the naturalistic explanation before I jump to a supernatural explanation?
okay, I'll grant you that one, okay? But how about the first two things I saw? I was not high. I was not drinking. And I was with my wife, my first wife and my present wife. They saw the same thing. Two people can't see the same paranormal thing unless it's real.
So that's actually not true. There's things like group hysteria. I mean, we have, events in history where multiple people, I mean, think about it like this. How many people have seen Elvis alive or Tupac alive? There are plenty of people who have shared experiences that they believe they're seeing people from the dead or the supernatural or other things.
So just discounting. Can't hear you.
I think what the point we're saying is, Richard, unless when we experience something we think's outside the realm of normality or nature, instead of jumping to the conclusion that it's a supernatural event, there's some kind of a supernatural, because to say that it's a supernatural event, you have to, I think you have to infer that there's a supernatural something behind the event. And rather than saying, well, that must be what it is, we want to exhaust all natural ideas, because there's no evidence in the world of extraterrestrial or supernatural things. So rather than just jumping to that conclusion, I think what Ethan's saying, or what I'm saying, is we don't just jump there. We don't just make that leap because we can't explain it. Having an inability to explain something doesn't make it a legitimate supernatural experience.
Well, no, I'll agree with you.
Okay, good.
It's nice to have a reasonable caller.
Yeah, thanks, Richard.
Because you don't understand my point yet. You really think that I'm hallucinating, and I'm saying I'm not hysterical.
No.
My wife was not hysterical. We've seen this. It happened over 40 years. I wish I could convince you, and I know I can't convince you, which is really okay with me.
Okay.
Because my point of calling in the first place is just to see if there's anybody else out there like me.
Of course,
I
get that.
And like I said, I'm going to go to a dermatologist, and my body is changing, physically.
Mm-hmm.
My hands are turning colors. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess the point, for one, I don't think you're hallucinating or crazy.
No.
I'm sure I can speak for Dave as well. Both of us believe you saw what you saw. For example, I have taken mushrooms before, and when I was on mushrooms, I saw some tricky things. Now, I'm not lying about what I saw, but I recognize that there was an element in my brain that was creating these images for me. And rather than saying, hey, this is something supernatural going on, I say, you know what? All of this can be pretty much chalked up to the drugs I put in my system. So I'll stick with like the naturalistic explanation. But definitely would not be, one, shaming you for smoking pot, and two.
No. And I think we can all agree that we're still, science and medicine, we're still learning a lot about the brain. There's I would say it's probably the last frontier. We don't really know. There's so much more that we don't know about the brain and how we think and how we process information than we do know. And so when we encounter things that we don't understand, we can say, well, that's the brain. It's like dreams. Who who can explain dreams? They're crazy as shit. But it's our brain working. It's our brain processing our experiences and the information that comes into it. And I think we can agree that we don't know a lot yet, and we're learning about how the brain works. And that's why we should all take drugs and experience everything we can, because we don't know what's going on up in that brain.
No, we don't.
I agree with you. May I say that my wife doesn't smoke marijuana. My first wife didn't smoke marijuana. You know, I don't know what to say, but what I'm saying is I'm going to see my dermatologist. I'll keep you guys posted.
Awesome.
Or whatever. You know, I don't know.
Thanks for calling.
Anyway, what I really called for is just to see if there's anybody like me.
Oh,
That's all.
I get that.
Sure there are.
And if anyone out there can relate to what Richard's saying, you know, please let me know, and I'll get you in contact with Richard. I appreciate you taking the time to call in and share your story. And we got to move on to the next caller, but I hope you have a wonderful week.
Okay, you too. Bye.
Thanks,
Hi,
Richard.
Richard. Thanks.
You know, Dave,
Yeah.
I'm actually, and to be clear, I'm not recommending this for other people. This is what I'm doing for my own personal experiment. I'm looking forward to trying DHT because everyone keeps saying, oh, when you try a heroic dose of DHT, you're going to see God. So I'm like, all right, cool. Let's put this to the test.
Well,
So
when you see God, tell me what she looks like.
I will. So well, here's the thing. Even if I see a God while I'm on DHT, there's still no reason to believe that it is an actual God or something operating independent from my brain.
What is DHT?
It's some type of drug chemical that causes you to like hallucinate on the next level.
Yeah. I think maybe some friends have been doing some of that because they've had these experiences. I don't know.
Yes, I've noticed when people, I will be trying the heroic dose, but I will be doing it.
Hey, while you're in this little pause, let me take at the 1 hour mark, let me go to the bathroom real quick. Be right back.
Oh yeah, no problem. So yeah, for those, if anyone has any experience with it, I'd be super curious as to your thoughts or if you've tried it before. Don't worry, I'm not an idiot. I am, like, for example, when I tried mushrooms for the first time, I only took like a few little bites because I am paranoid over how my mind and body reacts to things. So it wasn't until the third time that I tried mushrooms where I really like put in a lot more. So, where I took a lot more. So with DMT, I will also be doing it responsibly. I will not be just going in for a heroic dose at the beginning. I'll be trying like a hit, then I'll wait. I'll try another hit. So I will be responsible. And again, I am not recommending other people try this. I am like a curious child, so I get excited. Anyways, let's move on to our next caller. It looks like, is this Dean?
It is. What's going on, man?
Hey, you're kind of quiet, Mr. Meadows. How are you? Are you there? Hello? Well, crap. We just lost him. Wait, he's coming back. There we go. Hey, Dean, can you hear me? I don't know what's going on. Sorry, 1 second. I'm going to try calling him back and see if this function works. So if you hear the ringing, I'm sorry. Anyways, also in the meantime, Dave, can you hear me?
I'm here.
Or not Dave, sorry, Dean. Dean, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
No, you're like crazy quiet. I mean, I can hear you, but it like barely.
Can you hear me now?
That's a little bit better. Keep talking.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Okay, cool. Dean, you're on with
Good.
Dave and Ethan. What's going on?
Let's see.
Hey, what's going on? I'm just chilling, and to be frank, when the other guy asked if Ethan had ever smoked marijuana, I actually busted out laughing.
Because you knew I had.
Because I knew you had.
Actually, so
But
Dean
my
also knew I
question is that
tried
it's like a
mushrooms
given.
because we're in this.
It's like a given that you can smoke marijuana.
That's true. It's like everyone. I would think everyone knows that about me. I am
Like
pretty.
everybody already knows this.
Yes. For those that don't know, when I tried mushrooms for the first time, I jumped in this group chat with Dean and several other people, and I challenged Dean to a debate while on mushrooms. And he's like, I think you need to think about this, Ethan. I don't think I should be debating somebody that is on mushrooms. So,
No.
Well, at that point, I'm in a lose-lose situation because if I smoke you in the debate, I smoked Ethan on shrooms. But if Ethan crushes me, then it's like Ethan crushed me on shrooms.
that's true. That probably wouldn't be
And
good for your
that's just something
apologist.
you don't ever. That's just something you never live down, right?
No, but we should still try it sometime, Dean. Anyways, what do you got for us?
Do what?
What do you have for us today?
Oh, well, I called in and I said I wanted to talk about the resurrection, but I'm actually interested in something that Dave had addressed with the two ladies earlier about the scenario. Really, I think how we would classify it would be the problem of evil, I guess.
Okay.
And if it's okay, can we explore that a little bit more, or do you want me to talk about the resurrection? It's up to y'all.
Dave, you're my guest of honor, so I'm going to leave the discretion up to you, my friend.
I'm open to anything.
There you go, Dean.
I've got bourbon, so I'm fine.
Okay, cool. So earlier, if I understand you correctly, you asked the ladies if why God is kind of like Milton Bradley, right? He sets up the rules, and why did he set it up this way? Is that the gist, I guess, of what you said?
Yeah, because the argument that they use and that most Christians that I know use, and actually what I used to believe myself, is that because of original sin and the fall of man, sin and death entered the world. And since that day, that fateful day in the Garden of Eden, we've had all this trouble in the world. My point is, God's the one that decided that was okay, and that innocent children throughout history could suffer and die because Eve chose to eat the fruit that he designed and the rules that he set up to begin with. That's the point. It's problematic from the get-go, in my opinion.
Right. So I guess my question would be maybe twofold, and I'm sure that you've heard this before. So on Christianity, historical Christianity, God is a all-loving and all-powerful being, right? So here's something that I'd like to suggest.
Okay.
I would like to suggest that, and I don't necessarily want to go into the offshoot of this, but I would like to suggest that if God allows free will, then he simply can't create just any world that he wants to. Hold on one second. I think my daughter just hurt herself.
Oh.
Ethan, can I call back?
Yeah, that's my callback.
How about that?
All right, I'll call back.
All right, sorry about that, folks, but
It's just going to get good, I think.
I agree. I got a really good idea. What we could do is I'll challenge Dean to this debate publicly, me on mushrooms, but we'll sell tickets and all the money goes to like a fundraiser or something. Watch Dean
Dean a believer?
Huh?
Is Dean a Christian?
Yeah, Dean's a Christian. He is he's from the Daily Apologist.
Christian who does shrooms? Okay. A Christian who does shrooms?
No. I do shrooms. Meaning sorry. No. He advises against shrooms. He would definitely not do them.
Okay.
All right.
Well,
Let's.
hopefully you'll call back. Yeah.
All right. We have another caller. It looks like Miranda. You are on with Ethan and Dave. How are you?
Hi, good. How are you?
Doing well.
Hey, Miranda.
You guys have some goofy callers.
Thank you.
I don't know how you do this, man. I don't know how you do it, bro.
Well, the goal is to actually get these people who have more obscure or wild claims to just think about their belief system more, because a lot of these people live.
Yeah, but it's pretty hard to get through to those people.
Yeah, but you know what? A lot of us were some of those people before. I was that angry Republican Christian. I was a very different person. So
me too.
And granted, I wasn't as extreme as some of these people, but I would rather believe that, through the right questioning, we can get through to most people.
They don't go to doctors.
I think they realize that, and that's when they start going off the wall.
Yeah, they were pretty far out there if they don't go to doctors and stuff.
The hard questions is when they start really losing it.
Mm-hmm.
Like when she wouldn't answer your question earlier, it's like, come on.
That's where I do get frustrated, is when it's like you ask someone a direct question, it's like that cognitive dissonance sets in, and they know that if they answer it, it makes them look bad, and then they look for a way out of it.
Right.
It's frustrating.
Well, the frustrating default position for me with Christians, and I really get tired of it, and I won't accept it anymore. I'll call bullshit every time, is when they just throw up their arms and say, well, there are just some things we can't understand, and that we'll never understand this side of heaven. That's just fucking bullshit. Right. Hey, I went over an hour without dropping the F-bomb.
You're fine. You dropped the F-bomb. You're good.
Wow.
Friendly doesn't mean no swear words. So, anyways, Miranda, what do you got for us?
Well, okay, so my grandmother, I lived with her as she was dying when I was in my early 20s, and she was 87 when she passed away. And her entire life, she was raised her children, my father and her other children, and tried to raise her grandchildren, meaning me, to be like the Bible banging Christian, like Billy Graham type of, that type of Christian. And at the end of her life, when she knew how sick she really was, and she was just suffering, and they said she could still suffer like this for a long week or more. And through communicating with her as best as she could, she communicated to me that she wanted me to give her basically all of her medication so she could just go to sleep and not wake up. And I did that for her. And at the end of her life, after having all these beliefs that she probably never felt that it would come to that, when it finally came to that, she realized, like, just, God isn't taking me. God is letting me suffer. And if I can get out of this suffering and you're willing to help me, please help me.
Yeah. That's the thing. When it doesn't really affect you personally, it's just theory. Right. Like with Ashley and Edith, just a bunch of theory and theology until it affects them personally. And then, like your grandmother, it becomes a different ball game.
Right. And exactly. I just want to make sure I heard you correctly. Did you say you did give your grandma the medicine?
Yeah.
So okay.
That's merciful.
I gave her the medicine, and she passed away within 20 minutes.
And she wanted you to?
Yes.
Yeah. So she changed her mind when it affected her personally, is what I heard you say. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
That's my point. It's fine to argue these points in theory, but when it affects you personally, that's why I like to put a face to it. When I challenge people like Amy and Ashley, and to look them in the eye and say, you're saying that I should have to die a slow, painful, suffering death. That's what you're saying. And when you make it personal like that, it gets a little more difficult to look someone in the eye and say, yes, I want you to suffer until you die.
That's why I thought it was funny when Ethan said, I have to call bullshit about the fact that you would not take your children to the doctor if they were sick.
Well, because, seriously, like, who is going to sit there, except a complete psychopath, and look at their children who are suffering?
I'm getting the feeling that those women would.
Like, but
That's why I'm saying they don't even have any.
And DCFS should be called in that case.
Yeah, they should not be allowed to have children.
I'm curious.
It is neglect. It's
do?
neglect, and
it's and
no, go ahead, sorry.
And I no,
well, I applaud you for doing that, Miranda, because I'm thinking that took a lot of courage on your part, and it was not easy for you to do that.
No, it really wasn't, but I just felt like deep in my heart that it was the right thing to do, and I felt like, why would I let her suffer another 2 weeks for no reason? If it just seemed like such an easy answer. Like, of course, if this is what she wants, why wouldn't I do it?
Mm-hmm. But technically, she took it herself, so you're not an accomplice. Let's be careful here.
Okay, I'm already like treading on real hot water right now. So
let's be careful. And shout out to Kristen. Kristen, you don't miss a thing. I love you, darling. You're awesome. Kristen Frogan, all the way over in Sweden. She's just the best ever. Best name ever, and probably the best person ever.
Yes. Anyways, Miranda, I do want to thank you for calling in and sharing your story, especially on assisted suicide / death with dignity, because I'm on the same side as Dave. I see no reason why we should be opposed to it. And in fact, my position has actually slightly changed from the roundtable that I had with Dave. And it was as a result of the Sassy Heathen, because I was opposed to assisted suicide when it came to depression at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And the more I factored it in and thought about it and looked into it, the more I'm like, I actually can't say I'm against it anymore when it comes to people who have severe depression and anxiety. Because for me, when I had like a horrible event mentally, now granted, I'm glad nothing happened, but if that period of how I felt was permanent, kill me. That's no way. Nobody should have to live with suicidal ideation all day to the point that they're like crying and shaking. Like that should that's cruel. We shouldn't let anybody suffer. So,
well, the point of all of this is that we lose sight of something that I think is very important. And it's this. It's not about how long we live. It's about how well we live. And that may sound like a cliche. You know,
exactly. That's very true, though.
It's really true. And if we're insisting that people have to live a miserable life as long as they possibly can, why are we insisting that for someone else? That's, first of all, it's not my place to do that. Quality of life, exactly, Sassy Heathen. Quality of life is what's important. It's the quality, not the.
Well, and why not just let people choose that between themselves and their doctor, make it legal, and then it doesn't affect anyone else. It's not affecting you or I if somebody chooses.
Yeah, the argument
legal between them and their doctor, then let them do that. That's their own life.
And their loved ones. You know, you got people in your life, you know, you wanna like, I've got my partner Bevan, and so it's not just me deciding, oh, I think I'm done. I wanna be able to say, well, what about how does that going to make her feel? You know, I factor that into it. It's not just my life; it's the people around me. And it's just it's important that we don't enforce. And this slippery slope argument to me is bullshit. These people say, well, everybody's just going to be killing themselves. Oh, come on.
That happened.
Yeah, you actually want to do that. That's ridiculous.
Anyways,
well, the medical field already recognizes, obviously, when people are sick, they put them in palliative care and hospice, and it's all about to make the person comfortable. Right. So if they're willing to do all of that, then why wouldn't they just be willing to let that patient decide what they want to do?
Yeah. Why are we forcing this? I mean, nursing homes are filled with people who are ready to go. They are done, and nobody will let them.
Miranda, I want to thank you for taking the time to call in, and we got to move on to our next caller. So I appreciate you sharing your story.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Miranda.
Have a good night.
You too. You know, it's nice to see that more people, you know, are becoming in favor of assisted suicide, and it's getting more attention.
Well, I'm a believer that if it weren't for our subculture, the undercurrent of religion in this country, that we wouldn't have these laws that make it so difficult for people to have these choices. And that's why I'm thankful for the group that I work with, the Final Exit Network that we talked about during the roundtable. They have found a way to circumvent the laws in a way that makes it possible for people in my situation to have some options and to have some control. And that's the important part, is having that sense of control, that I'm not just relegated to have to suffer needlessly for years and years and years.
Exactly. My friend Holly, a co-host from another show I had a few months back, her husband passed of ALS. He's like 35 when it happened, and I asked her view on it, and she's like, after seeing like what he went through, there's no way I could be opposed to it or tell him that he didn't have the right to take his own life at that point. And I wish the religious community would understand that it's not their right to impose their will. I mean, I don't think like Amy or Ashley, the Christians at the beginning of the show, would want a Muslim or a Buddhist or an atheist imposing their view on them, or
No, because we're wrong and they're right.
All right, next up.
Shout out to Kyle Brewer. I want to say a minute before we take the next call.
Yeah.
I see the comments, and I'm not able to type well enough or fast enough to respond to them. So I just want to say hey to everybody and thanks for your comments.
Yeah, Dave, you are incredibly loved by the atheist community. That's for sure.
I appreciate that.
And for those who don't know, Dave, the roundtable we're referring to, we did a roundtable on my channel a couple months back on death with dignity. We had someone, a couple people opposed to it. It got heated at a few points.
Yeah, it did.
It was frustrating. Incredibly frustrating.
Hey, Ethan, I love you. I love watching you get frustrated. It's fun. Because you're such a nice, mild-mannered guy, but I could just see your blood pressure just going.
That's what was happening. I was literally, when I was doing this, I was wiping sweat off my neck.
It's so funny.
All right. Next up, we have Gretchen. Gretchen, you're on with Dave and Ethan. How are you?
Hello again, Ethan. And hello,
Gretchen.
Dave.
Hi, Gretchen.
I'm fine. Hi.
What did you want to talk to us about?
Well, I want to talk to you about my ghost experience.
Sure, go ahead.
Well, when my parents got divorced, sadly, we moved to East Texas and lived in my grandmother's farmhouse. And it was a really nice place. Very interesting. Kind of got a little gloomy at night, I guess. But like some of my relatives talked about seeing blue spheres in the house. Like blue spheres floating around the house. I was like, okay, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then like one night I woke up. And I mean, I was completely awake when I saw this. And I mean, I sat up and I gasped in my bed. I saw a blue bear. It was like about 6 feet tall with its arms stretched out to the right, just standing there at the foot of my bed.
A bear?
A bear, a blue ghostly bear, standing at the foot of my bed with its arms stretched out to the right. I was completely awake.
A blue bear?
Yes, a blue bear.
Okay.
A blue ghostly bear.
Okay.
Before, I want to ask the obvious question, only because we did have to confirm with the guy earlier. Were you on any drugs at that moment, or were you sober?
This was in 1976 or 1977. I was a child, and I never did drugs, of course. I wasn't raised that way. And I never did even drink coffee or anything, so I was completely clean.
Okay. And how old?
Completely clean.
And how old were you?
I think I was around 8.
Was it like a real
It
looking
was
bear?
like in 1976 or 1977.
Was it like a real bear or like a teddy bear, cartoon bear?
No, it was like a real, about 6 foot tall, ghostly blue bear with its arms stretched out to the right.
Like a grizzly bear.
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay.
And how
Very
long was it there for?
detailed. Okay, it lasted for at least, I would say, 3 minutes when I saw it, and then it slowly faded out. But I woke up, and then I was like, I don't know if I need to use a restroom or whatever. But I woke up and and then I looked at the foot of the bed and I saw it. And that made me just sit up and gasp.
What do you think it was?
I've always been kind of a strong person, so of course I didn't scream.
What do you think it was?
Sorry, what did you say?
But he said, "What do you
I'm
think
sorry.
it was?"
I think it was it was obviously a bear with its arms stretched out to the right.
Do you think it was a real bear?
Okay, let me go into the details.
Okay.
I found out later there's an Indian burial ground not far from our farm. And there's also a cemetery down the street called New Hope Cemetery. I mean, I really think that it was like my Indian spirit guide.
Okay.
When I found out about spirit guides later, I was like, so I accepted the bear as my Indian spirit guide. But I know when I saw it, it was real.
So let me ask you this: How do you know, for instance, it was something supernatural and not just something that you were like hallucinating?
I was not hallucinating. A, of course, I wasn't on any drugs. I was a child.
Well,
And B, that thing made me gasp. I mean, I sat up straight up in my bed and gasped when I saw it. And I actually watched it fade out. So it was very real.
So I'm not saying it wasn't real. So and for the record, you don't, like, people who are not on drugs can hallucinate. So I guess why jump and say, hey, I'm not going to accept that this is a hallucination that my mind created when we can demonstrate that the mind can do this, but instead I'm going to say it's something supernatural when we have no way to verify or investigate that, or any reason to believe that it is something.
Well, I know what I saw. I know what I saw. And it's not something I wanted to see or imagined or something.
Let me ask you something, Gretchen. How has that experience or the memory of that, how has that affected you for positive or negative throughout your life?
It's been a positive experience.
How so?
I found out I was American. I was like, I have a little bit of American Indian blood, so I just accepted it as my Indian spirit guide.
Well, you can find out your heritage through DNA now. So why do we need to? I mean, I found out through what is that thing we did, hon? 23andMe. I found out that I'm Irish, Scotch Irish, and white bread as they come. I figured out, I found out my heritage and my ancestry. I didn't need a spirit guide for that, and so I don't know how that helps us, honestly.
I didn't need a spirit guide. I mean, at the time, I didn't even know that I was part Cherokee. I mean, I didn't know that at the time. I found out later. And I didn't know at the time that there was an Indian burial ground near there. I found out about that later.
Yeah.
But since I had that experience, it was a positive experience,
Okay.
And so then I was like, you know what? Then I'm going to accept the bear as my spirit guide since I saw that. You know what I mean? So that's what I did later on.
Well, no harm, no foul, I guess.
No. Anyways,
You feel better about who you are and where you came from. I think
Yeah.
for me with supernatural things, ideas and beliefs, I personally don't think there's any harm in thinking things like that, as long as we don't try to impose beliefs like that on someone else.
Right.
And we try to make a doctrine out of it.
I understand that.
Yeah. So if you felt like it's a positive experience for you, and you're not trying to say everyone should have a spirit guide, and if you don't have one, there's something wrong with you, then that's where we get into trouble, is when we take our experiences or our ideas and we try to impose them on other people and make them a law. That's when I get my hackles come up.
Yeah.
Gretchen, we got to get to our last caller, but I want to thank you for taking the time to come in and share your experience. The only thing I would consider thinking about is the possibility that there may be a naturalistic explanation for what had happened.
It was really interesting. It was very interesting.
Awesome. Well,
Very.
thank
I'll
you.
never forget it.
All right, we gotta jump to our last caller, but thanks again for calling in.
You're welcome.
Have a good one.
Y'all have a good evening.
Bye, Gretchen.
All right, Dave, ready for our last caller?
Yeah.
Cool. It looks like I believe the screener said Hogan. If I'm looking at that right, is it Hogan? Looks like you want to talk about atheism versus what? I don't know. Are you there?
I'm sorry. It's Kevin.
Kevin. Okay.
White always had the wrong name.
Yeah, sorry. One of these days, like I said, I'll get a person to screen as opposed to the automated screener. Anyways, Kevin, what do you want to talk about?
So, well, the question I want you to clarify some things for a few people that have called in. The difference between, like being an atheist and saying just outright that God isn't real. Like, I know you are the type that's like, well, if God is real, prove him to be real.
Right.
But so many people are calling in so much hatred, like, well, why do you think God's not real? Why do you whoa, calm down. Like, you're just saying, prove it. I want kind of scientific proof of it not being real.
Right.
That's part one. Part two is me wondering, so what experience did you have with Christianity that made you guys both just walk away from it?
Well, I prayed for a parking spot and I didn't get it. So I said, fuck you, God. No. First of all, let me just, I didn't mean to jump in, Ethan. But atheists don't say, I believe there's no God. Atheists say, I don't believe there's a God. Show me the evidence and I might. So I'm not saying there is no God. I'm saying I don't see credible evidence for one. That's a huge difference. So just to clear that up. Go ahead, Ethan. Take that.
Mine's quick. So, I was Christian for the majority of my life, although, as I've said in the past, I'm sure most of my Christian friends will say I wasn't a true Christian. I hear that quite frequently. But with that being said, for me, the religion side was quite easy for me to drop, mainly because as a child, I'm just trying to be as honest as possible with how I felt. I couldn't buy into it. Like, when I saw other people in church kneeling and praying, I remember as a kid looking around and being like, so people actually believe this? Like, all of this stuff? Like, why? And I believed in God, but I just didn't understand religion. Like, it just, to me, was just illogical. And there was no reason that some almighty God needs me to sit here and beg and worship him by any means. Now, what the thing that actually convinced me to not be an atheist anymore was I realized one of the arguments I was using for God was fallacious. I would constantly say, well, what else could it be? And what else could it be? Or I don't know. Therefore, God is not an acceptable reason to believe in God. Once I realized I was making those mistakes, it was easy for me to be like, well, I actually don't have a good reason to believe in God. So I didn't endure like what many other atheist people from going to Christianity to atheism, like a lot of them suffered like mentally in so many ways. I didn't have that experience. It was like a switch in many ways. For me, it was the political indoctrination that took and still takes many years for me to remove from my brain. Dave?
And for me, it was, and my deconstruction was about 10 years ago when I came to the conclusion that I'd been wrong my whole life about the existence of God. It was more of a process of coming to the conclusion that I had not seen the evidence of God. I'd simply believed what people told me was true without any evidence. And I ran out of reasons to believe. And I got tired of making excuses for God's poor behavior. And that's what we had to do as Christians. We had to defend God all the time. Genocide, slavery, on and on and on. And there's so much about God in the Bible that's unpleasant. As one writer said, God, the most unpleasant character in all of fiction. And that's really true if you look at what the Bible says about God. And I was a Bible believer, and I believed that the Bible was the Word of God, infallible and inspired and all those things. And to take that view of God and try to extrapolate that into what my experience with him was, I came to the conclusion that my experience did not match up with what the Bible says God was or is. And I got tired of defending that, and I started investigating what actually was true or not true about my experience with God. And I came to the painful conclusion, it wasn't something I was looking for, but I came to the painful conclusion that it wasn't true. And that was about 10 years ago. And to be able to say I never was a true Christian, I was a believer for over 30 years. And if I wasn't a true Christian, then nobody is, because no one tried harder than me.
I hope that answers your question, Kevin.
I feel like for me, I just, like right where you are, Dave, that, I'm not saying there's anything different about what you do and what I do. It's just right there makes me want to find out more. And I mean, like I said, you're older, but I just continue because I have so many questions. I have questions all the time. Like when you pose the question, why are there no cures for ALS? Like not one. I have no idea. I wish I could answer that question or ask God why.
Me
why
too.
are people suffering or why are others suffering? Like, it's just, but some of the stuff I just chalk it up to is I'm just not going to find out in this life,
That's a cop-out, Kevin. God,
yeah.
If God's there, he gave us a brain for a reason. And for us to say, well, there's just some things about God we're never going to know till we get to heaven, that's a cop-out. I'm sorry.
Well, it's like, for me, again, I just try to look at it also with you ever been in a relationship and they just walk the fuck away and you have no closure, no nothing, and you're never going to get that, 100% sure you're never going to find out the real reason of what, just some stuff you're just never going to have, you're just going to have to be okay with. And I feel like that's where my faith comes in.
Yeah, but you can call that person or go see them and ask them the question. You can't do that with God. He doesn't pick up. He doesn't put a voicemail.
I don't know. And like I said, I grew up in the church. I did. I said this several times before when I've talked to people. I've grown up in the church. My parents were preachers. My grandpa was a deacon. Southern Baptist. People screaming on the floor, throwing themselves out, looking like they're footworking in the middle of. I never understood any of that. I went to Christian school and Catholic school my entire life, up to going to Ohio State, and it just made me question so many more of the traditions and just trying to get to the root of what actually is when it comes to religion, Christianity, Judaism, just everything, Islam, like what's the actual root and the actual fundamental belief system.
Let me ask you this, Kevin. Why do you believe God is real?
So personally, I just believe that there's a greater purpose than just waking up, going to work every day, and then you die. Like, I believe that there's a greater purpose than that. I've seen things happen that I just can't explain. And I can't say that 100% certain God did that or God didn't do that. I don't know. But I just believe that there's something bigger and better. I believe that, a lot of stuff that was written, that I've seen written, is coming true. And I believe in the power of prayer. And I'm not saying that, you pray, God answers every prayer. He answers. I don't know. I don't know his algorithm. I don't know why he does certain stuff and why he doesn't. He or she. I don't know. So I question the whole Jesus coming and dying and only some people, like, I don't know. I don't know why it happened that way. But if I just take myself out of the equation and try to think that I'm not as big as my ego out of it, there's just some stuff I'm not, the world doesn't revolve around me. So my situations and every prayer that I give probably is not going to be answered.
Let me ask you this. If prayer can be shown to have no greater, cannot help you any better than chance, would you still say it's reliable?
Yeah, but that's where it comes into being, that's where the faith part comes in. I'm not testing it against the scientific method. Like, I'm testing it against, like, the belief. I guess it's a feel thing.
All right. So do you think feelings or faith is a reliable path to truth? And what I mean by that is, for example, there are over 4,100 plus religions the last time I checked. And as you know, we have how many different Christians who all believe wildly different things and all say it comes down to faith.
6,000 Christian denominations.
There you go. Now, with this many denominations and this many different beliefs and all of these people saying the same thing, well, it just feels right, or I just have faith. Does that sound reliable to you? Or a reliable method?
I always say, get down to the core of it. That's what I'm saying. Like, I think the core of it, like, I think man has effed up religion so much. Like, I really just believe in the basic core of Christianity. I just call it Christianity. Just be a good person, do good things, follow. And I don't think that the teachings of Christ are pretty much anything outside of be a good person. Like, have a relationship with, quote unquote, me. Just be good. Just pretty much.
And that's what
came along, and people started writing more rules into it. And you have to pray this many times, or you have to do this many times, or you have to go through all these different, sacred steps to get through heaven. No, like, God didn't tell you none of that shit. God didn't tell anybody to do that shit. He didn't tell you to build these crosses. He didn't tell you to pray to these statues. He didn't tell you to pray to these things. Literally kind of said, don't do that. But
so
whatever.
Kevin,
that's why I said,
why do you need a God or a Jesus to be a good person? Because Ethan's a good person.
I hope so.
I'm a good person.
I think you do. I think you do.
Huh?
But I also put it in this way. If, let's just say, God created heaven and earth, right? And to get to me, you just have to believe in me. Right? To get to this place, you have to be. If you don't believe, do you want to go there?
Do you believe there's a hell?
I do.
Who goes there?
Possibly the non-believers. I'm not there to judge, though.
No, why would there be a hell? What's the purpose of hell?
And I don't, and I can't even say the non-believers, because just
why
does
there need to be a hell? Kevin. What's the purpose of a place called hell? Why?
So I guess it would be to punish those who committed a horrible things here on earth.
Well, the Bible, if you're going to be a Bible believer, hell is for those who don't believe in Jesus and don't claim him as the Savior. Do you believe that's correct?
I do not believe hell is for everyone because just basic looking at the world, there's some parts of the world just may not have Christianity or may not, people who may not have known. What if a baby's born? I have no idea. Like, I guess that people come up with that age of knowledge thing, but that to me is bullshit.
Well,
are you a Christian, Kevin?
I am a Christian.
So here's my.
But again, I question so many different things in the Bible, question so many teachings, and I believe that we're supposed to. Like, we're not supposed to follow anything blindly.
It sounds like what you're doing, Kevin, is taking out the things you like about Christianity, ignoring the things you don't like, and they're just calling it your own religion and taking it on faith.
Well, no, I don't think it's ignoring, because I condemn all the horrible parts of Christianity that are horrible. Like, and I don't follow that. Like, I don't think it makes sense to me. Like, I don't think that to be a Christian, you have to pray so many different times, or you have to be anointed or talk to a little man in a box. Like, I don't think you have to be a Christian. I mean, you don't have to, it's not the meaning of Christianity.
So, but what you're doing is taking, oh, please, Dave, I apologize. Go ahead.
You're cherry picking the parts of you want to, like Ethan said, yeah, you know what cherry picking is, right? You're choosing the parts you like and discarding the parts you don't like. And that's not what biblical Christianity is.
I hear what you guys are saying, but I don't think it's cherry picking. I just want to get back to the roots of it, the basic roots of being a good person, following just normal basic laws. Don't kill people.
You don't need to be a Christian to be a good person. That's my point. I'm a more moral person as an atheist than I was as a Christian.
Same.
Did you hear me? I'm more moral as an atheist than I was as a Christian. Do you believe that's possible?
So you're saying you know what I completely do. I completely do. I completely do.
Okay. Why would I need to be a Christian? Why would I need to adhere to any kind of faith in order to be a good person? To be a good person, you just do what's right. It's that simple.
Yeah, but when it comes to your morality, like, where do we all get our morality from, or our moral compass?
We get it from knowing what's right and what's wrong, from instinct, from the social connections that we have. We've evolved into where you know what's right and wrong. You know it in yourself. You don't need a Bible or a Christian moral code to tell you what's right or wrong.
Right. And even, like, let's say right now, Kevin, I was a completely selfish person, okay? And I only cared about myself. Even using purely selfish means, I could still be a good person, because I could recognize that in order for me to get what I want out of life, I have to do things to help out other people. I have to be nice to them to get them to talk to me. So you don't need Christianity. You just kind of need your brain to become, to have a moral foundation.
But does that make you moral? Does that make you playing by the rules just to get what you want?
I would say, okay, so I would say that would be, it's still moral, because you're still treating other people respectfully. I mean, and I think
people like you want to be treated, and the Bible didn't make that up. The golden rule. That's human.
Oh, of course.
That's evolution. Evolutionary human nature. We treat people like we want to be treated ourselves. That is morality.
Yeah, but that didn't happen for all people, though. That's what I'm saying. And I'm not saying that Christianity happened for all people too, because of course there was slavery and stuff. But I'm just saying, like, if we talk about a basic human compass, like, I just believe it has to come from somewhere. And especially saying that it comes from, the civilization growing and just people coming more civilized, I definitely disagree with that. I don't think now we become more of a civil nation than we have in the past. Yeah.
You're starting with an assumption that something has to come from somewhere. You're saying that it has to come from somewhere. Where'd you get that? Why is that true?
Well, if I look at just another way that I kind of explain it, just the basic code of DNA, like code is written, like anyone knows about code is written. It had to get there somewhere. Like something had to program that in the beginning. Like it had to be programmed
Says who?
to go off. It had to be programmed to go.
Again, you're starting with an assumption.
So you're basically, what you're saying is,
Fine.
I don't, Kevin, what you're doing here is saying, like, I don't know what, you're kind of doing the same thing. Actually, I don't know. So I'm going to go ahead and believe there has to be something greater. And because I believe there has to be something greater, I'm going to go ahead and say that my thoughts, my morals come from somewhere. So what Dave's saying is you've made your conclusion at the beginning. I'm totally, wow. I don't think I worded that the best.
You're starting with an assumption.
Starting with, thank you.
You're going backwards to prove a point. I see what you're saying.
And like you said earlier, that there has to be a purpose. I mean, what would you say for someone like me who's an atheist with a terminal illness? What is my purpose? How could I have a purpose in life without God?
I can't tell you I know your purpose in life. I can't tell you I do. I could maybe suggest if the people that you've come in contact with, or the people that you've touched, or the hearts that you've touched, or just like, I don't know.
Exactly. And I don't need.
I'm not.
God.
That I don't.
God. That's my point. I don't need a God or a faith. I just get up every day and I try to be the best person I can, and try to help people along the way, and be good and be kind. That is purpose enough for me.
Kevin, real quick, because we got to wrap up in just a moment here, but let me ask you this. Why should Dave or I believe in a God?
I can tell you a lot of times where I do too, because I can't tell you why you should, because I don't know your life. I don't know the struggles that you go through every day, and I don't know what comforts you.
Okay.
But I will say that the belief in a God for me is very comforting. It knowing that there is a greater power, or it puts my mind at ease knowing that there's something bigger than me and something better ahead.
All right, Kevin, so let me ask you.
That there's something promised after all of this.
All right, let me ask you this. What would you rather believe, the truth or a comforting lie?
Yeah, it's funny that you say that, because I tell people all the time, like, I'd rather be hurt by the truth than comforted in a lie.
So,
but that's proven though. So you have to prove that that's a lie, that there is no God. Well, there is proof.
That's not true. So
prove there is a God.
There is no
Kevin.
God.
Kevin.
Yeah.
We don't have to prove there's no God. You have to prove there is a God.
Right.
You made the claim.
No, but it works both ways. It works completely both ways. I understand why people say that.
No. I'll do it, honey. No. You made the claim there's a God. Prove it.
Do you know what the burden of proof is,
and
Kevin?
People saying that there is no God. If someone's saying to me, there's
no.
Yes. It's period. Legally, if a person is making a claim, that person needs to prove that claim.
All right, Kevin, time out.
Kevin.
Dave, go ahead.
This is where we started. We are not making the claim there is no God. You're making the claim there's a God, and we're saying, I don't see enough evidence for that. Show me. You made the claim, we didn't. You got that backwards, bro.
Exactly. That's not what I'm saying for you guys, Dave. That's not what I'm saying for you or Ethan. I'm saying just period. If a person is making a claim saying, hey, there is no God, if a person is making the claim saying that,
right.
Then to me,
Kevin, sorry, I apologize for cutting you off, but that's kind of irrelevant right now, because neither of us are saying there is no God.
Yeah.
You are saying there is a God.
That's what I'm saying.
We're saying we don't believe you. Hey, Kevin, hang on, please.
Okay.
Now, if I say to you, for example, the tooth fairy exists, I need to prove that, correct?
Yeah.
Now,
Okay.
what would you say is the default position? To believe there is a tooth fairy without evidence, or to say, I don't believe there is a tooth fairy until evidence presents itself?
That's completely different, but I understand what you're saying.
No, it's completely
No,
different.
it's actually the exact same thing. So anytime God, fairies, the universe creating pixies, Allah, Buddha, all of these are claims that
Kevin,
require
you need to prove there's no Santa Claus, Kevin. I need you to prove that.
I bought those presents under the tree,
What?
and I don't have a chimney.
No, you need to prove there's no Santa Claus.
That's not proof. Just because you bought presents that say Santa, that's not proof that there is no Santa.
It could be that you were just bad. You didn't come to your house.
I'm sorry, it's kind of hard to hear you. Can you repeat that?
I'm sorry. I said for me there is no Santa. Now again, religion. This is why the religious discussion is so difficult, because everyone has a personal belief system, and the personal belief system falls back on their own personal experiences or subjective experiences they've had.
That's why there are so many religions in the world. Because everyone wants to believe what they want to believe. And they can't all be right, but they can all be wrong. Here's what I want to conclude with, because I know we got to go, and I know I have to go because I got to pee again. I think, Kevin, my personal opinion is that you have trouble saying, I don't know. And therefore, you've come to a conclusion that you're comfortable with. You've kind of created your own version of Christianity, in my opinion, because it's not the biblical Christianity that I adhere to. I'm comfortable with saying, I don't know. I hope that you can get to a place where you're comfortable with saying, I don't know. And because that's a much easier place to live in. Because the bottom line is, none of us know. We're all agnostic.
45 times today, Dave. I've said I don't know a bunch of times. I said I don't know, but I believe. I don't know, but I believe.
Yeah, you're comforted in your belief, and you've kind of formulated your own version of Christianity to suit yourself. You just have. You've chosen the parts you like, and you've discarded the parts you don't like. And that's what people the world over have done. And if it makes you feel good, that's fine, but it may not be the truth. And that's why Ethan asked you, would you rather know the truth or hold on to something that makes you feel better? And I think right now, you're kind of holding on to something that makes you feel better.
And the one thing,
but it's not just about a feel-good story, though. That's what people aren't understanding. Now, Christianity makes people feel good, yes, but it's also a belief system where, to me, makes me a better person and feel horrible for the horrible things that I do. Hold on.
So we do have to wrap up, Kevin. I want to thank you for calling in, but you did say earlier in this conversation that it makes you feel good and you want to believe it.
Believing in a God, yes, believing that there's a higher power does make me feel better, but I'm not saying every section of the Christianity or whatever version you guys say I've created of Christianity is something that makes me feel good. Of course it doesn't. Did I just be walking around on a high all the time? That's not what I'm saying.
Okay. I guess here, what I want to close with real quick, and then we really do have to jet, is I have a choice in my life. I've had a choice for the past few years. I can either choose the comforting lie that I'm going to see my brother again, makes me feel good, but I don't simply believe that to be true. And for me, truth is more important than what makes me feel good. And because of that, I can't believe that I'm going to see my brother again because it's simply not true. And I personally I can't do comforting lies. I can't do bullshit. So I would just implore you to think about that. But Kevin, again, thank you for calling in. We got to hurry up and jet because we are way over time. But thanks.
Always good. You guys have a good one, man.
All right,
You too. Talking to you. Dave, what did you think?
This is fun. Do it again.
Dude, I had a great time with you. I would love to have you do this again with
You're
me.
the best, man.
Where can people check you out at?
DaveOutloud.com is the easiest. That links you to all the links on the Twitter and the Facebook and the whatever the stuff is. Yeah,
I got it all in the description.
yeah. I think somebody posted it. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Then this Thursday on my channel at 9 p.m. is the Pickup Line with Hannah Vaughn. We'll have special guest Dr. Daryl Ray, and the conversation will be around normalizing sex. Next Tuesday at 7 p.m., The Perspective will be back with special co-hosts Brainbug and Thomas Westbrook, aka Holy Kool-Aid. And then next Thursday, I'm excited about this one. Sean Schemmel, I will be interviewing him. So for those of you who don't know, look it up. It's pretty damn cool. I'm excited. So,
all right, love
Dave,
you.
thanks for doing this.
Bye. Hey, Kyle, good to see you here, buddy. Julie LaVoice, thank you, babe. Love you too. And Kristen, as always, you're the best. Thanks, guys.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.